Welcome back to another episode of The Shadows of Jesus, where we are walking through the whole Bible, Genesis to Revelation, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. Today we're going to be in Judges and Ruth, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Bill Jolly.
And we've got a special guest.
Ta-da!
My name is Jerica Moore, and I'm the worship director here. First-time podcaster.
Yeah, we've been trying to get you on the show for a while, so
I sing
welcome.
for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk.
Do you need a guitarist to talk
I need to
behind?
hide behind something. I don't know.
Well, thanks for being on here. So,
Are we going to get a song about Judges?
just sing chapter 5. Can we sing Judges chapter 5 on a Sunday?
You know, that's an interesting one. I don't think it's going to make the cut.
Oh, man. Oh, well.
All right. So in chapters 1 and 2 of Judges, as we recap this, Joshua's passed away, and kind of the big question is,
Yeah, who's going to lead Israel now?
Yeah,
From
so-
Moses to Joshua.
instead of God giving them a specific person, he's like, the tribe of Judah, which is more or less foreshadowing something for us, that our ultimate leader, ultimate king is going to come from the tribe of Judah, which is
Right, Jesus.
Jesus. All right. So, but in chapters 1 and 2, we see that Israel's messed up. They're evil. This new generation has more or less forgotten everything that God's done for them. And we see the cyclical thing where basically like they choose sin over peace, and then things don't go well. So what do?
Cry out to God.
Cry out to God. Then God sends
a judge.
a judge, and then things go well, and they have rest, and then rinse, repeat.
Yeah, the same cycle, and it
Sin
spirals
cycle.
further and further
things-
down.
and
The
by
judges
the,
get worse.
by the end of the Judges, it's just we're going to puke.
Yeah.
All right, so after that, we get into chapters 3 and 5. And this is where we meet the first 4 judges. The first one we meet is Othniel, we're just going to say names with confidence here.
That's right.
And so that's Caleb's nephew. And so, Jerica, guess what tribe he's from?
Judah.
You nailed it. All right. So he leads Israel. They have peace for 40 years, but eventually Israel decides they'd prefer sin over peace. So God hands them over to the king of Moab. So today we're also going to talk about Ruth, and we're going to see this Moab place show up again. So keep that in mind. But after 18 years of being conquered by the Moabites, they cry out to God, and he appoints Ehud as the second judge. And so what's cool about this, Jerica? What's cool about the story of Ehud?
This is
Ehud.
every middle schooler's favorite story in the Bible. Well, one, he's left-handed.
Yeah,
So-
and in the tribe of Benjamin, like he's a Benjamite, and that literally means tribe of the right hand. And so he's a lefty in a right-handed tribe.
He's a little outsider, but he's also like this CIA Navy SEAL operator who goes in and tells the king, hey, I have a secret to tell you.
I've got a message from God for you.
And so he's like, hey, clear the room, give us the room.
Yeah.
What does he do?
He stabs him, and he's a really fat king.
What happens to the
He
sword,
doesn't
the dagger?
get his sword back.
It disappears in his belly.
My favorite line out of this is that the guards on the outside waited until they were embarrassed because they thought the king was going to the bathroom.
Because it smelled like he was in the bathroom, because what came out when they stabbed him.
He pooped. Poop came out.
So pretty disgusting.
Middle schoolers.
So
Middle
after this, they
schoolers
kill
agree.
10,000 Moabites. They take back Jerusalem, the land they lost, and they have peace for 80 years. The next judge is Shamgar. This guy gets 1 verse. After that, the people prefer sin over peace, and God hands them over to their enemies, specifically Jabin, king of Canaan, who had 900 chariots. Bill, like, what would be significant about a king having chariots at this point in history?
Yeah, they're like modern day tanks. And so having a chariot meant you could decimate the normal ground troops as you're rolling through.
Yeah, and so the Canaanites were more on flat land. So if you're in the mountains, chariots,
No good.
no good. But on flat land,
Yeah, you're going
Huge
to
advantage.
rule that. Yeah.
so it feels hopeless. They cry out to God, and he brings them
Deborah.
Deborah, the
best
4th
judge.
judge. She's the
best
best
judge.
one, right?
Yes.
She's the best one. Now, Bill, real quick, when we think about a judge, like what comes to your mind?
So I would think of Judge Judy or
Jerica, what comes to your mind?
The Avengers.
I thought you said Judge Brown.
Old Judge Brown, but yes. But also the Avengers.
well, because the judges
They're
at
just
this
doing their
time,
own thing.
They weren't really civil magistrates. They were like
They don't have a gavel or a robe.
No, they have weapons. They're like chieftains, tribal chieftains. They're military leaders.
Except for Deborah.
Except she does, yeah.
Yeah, so she's a little different. And so Deborah is going to going to take over. They're going to win this battle against the Canaanites. But she's like, I'm not the fighter. I'm going to say Barak because that's my dog's name. And I think Barak sounds good. You could say Barak or...
I don't even remember.
Barak.
So we're going to say Barak. All right. So she's like, Barak, I need you to go fight. And he's like, I'm not going to do it unless you go with me. To which she says, okay, but...
You're not going to get the glory.
Who's going to get the glory?
A woman.
A woman.
Yeah. And so when I first read this, my first thought is, I'm like, it's Deborah. But is it going to be Deborah?
No.
Let's find out. So Jerica, tell us what happens. So Barak goes down. He's conquering people, but then one of the kings escapes.
Yes.
Or no, not the king, the commander.
The commander of Jabin's army escapes. Sisera. We're saying it with confidence. And he goes into his friend's wife's tent, thinking he's good, thinking he's safe.
Like, we've got peace here. Like, we're cool, so I'm going to be safe here.
Okay, now this is probably my second favorite story in Judges.
Him milk, covers with a rug.
Yeah. And then she drives a tent peg through his temple, all the way through into the ground. It's a very graphic description of how she kills him. So she gets the glory.
She's a hardcore chick.
The original double tap right there to take him out. I mean, it's gruesome.
She didn't want to just kill him. She wanted to make sure that he was dead.
Yeah. All right, so Jael, we'll call her Jael. She gets the glory.
She gets it.
And there's a contrast in there with the decisiveness of Deborah and the decisiveness of Jael. Like, this is what needs to be done. I'm going to do it. And it contrasts to Barak's indecisiveness and kind of, I don't know, you got to come with me to do this. And so I think there's some interesting things that we can draw out of that too.
Yeah. So in chapters 6 through 9, 40 years after Deborah, Israel once again decides they'd prefer sin over peace. They fall into the hands of the Midianites. So Bill, do you know how Israel and the Midianites are related?
So, after Sarah died, Abraham's wife, then he
gets remarried.
Yeah, he married a Midianite. And so that's where
Keturah.
we get that whole thing.
Yeah, so Abraham and Keturah have kids, and that's where the tribe of the Midianites come from. And so and during this time when the Midianites are kind of oppressing Israel, where do we find Israel?
It's pitiful. They're hiding in caves.
What are the Midianites doing to them?
Eating all their food, taking their animals. They're just running roughshod.
It says like Scar and the Pride.
I was thinking like Napoleon Dynamite, where he's like, "Give me your tots."
Or okay.
They're totally getting bullied, and they were just they had lost their spine.
Yeah, so maybe Scar's a better illustration.
Scar took over Pride Rock,
and it all fell. It was all pretty bad.
All right. So then, after 7 years, what does Israel do?
They cry out to God.
Like, we need help. And so we expect God to send a judge, but what does he do first?
Yeah, first we get a prophet.
Prophet. I guess it doesn't work. I don't know. But then after the prophet, they get a judge, and we meet Gideon. Where's Gideon at? What's he doing?
He is beating out wheat inside of a wine press. So he's hiding and doing something somewhere where that's not normal.
So nobody sees him and comes and takes his food.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day who got his wife Oreos for Christmas, and he found the Oreo wrappers in the bathroom. He's like, "Do you have a problem?" She's like eating the Oreos in the bathroom. It's like hiding.
He has a problem, I think, of stealing her
she's
Oreos.
Like, "Are you hiding Oreos in our bathroom so the kids don't eat them?" No. But like either way, like it's like you're hiding your food because you don't want the bullies to take it. Right, yeah. And so the angel of the Lord shows up. And this is probably a theophany, which what's a theophany?
It's an appearance of God, a vision of God somehow. And in this case, it's probably a pre-incarnate Jesus.
Yeah, and it's almost like in this scene, we probably have Jesus and God the Father both present in this moment. And so so the angel of the Lord is saying that the Lord is with you.
He's with you, mighty man of God.
Yeah, and Gideon's like, are you serious? Look at my life. I'm beating out wheat in a wine press. I'm eating Oreos in the bathroom. Like if God was with me, then like my life would not look like this. And he's complaining about the absence of God, literally to the presence of God. So God tells him that he's going to deliver Israel, but Gideon wants a sign. So thankfully, he has more than this sign. Like one is he gets the dream that he gets to listen in on and hear what God's done. But there's a specific sign that he's famous for, which is the sign of the fleece. What does that look like?
So he's asking God, if this is really what you're saying, I'm going to just put this fleece out here, and could you make it wet and the ground dry? And then I'll believe you.
And so he wakes up the next morning, he wrings out the fleece, it's sopping wet, and all the ground around it is
Totally
It's
dry.
dry.
So sign met. Is that good enough?
No. He's like, okay, well, what if we did it the opposite way? And God shows up. He's like, okay.
Reverse it.
Flips it and reverses it. And so, yeah, that's exactly
All right.
what
So if the
that's
ground's
what
wet and the
happens.
fleece is dry, then I'll know. And so God is, despite his fear and his doubt, God is like so patient with him, which is good news.
For us.
Good news for us, 100%. And so then after this, we read, I mean, like, I remember when the 300 movie came out, like everyone was like, have you done the 300 workout? I'm like, it was a moving movie. The original 300 though was not Sparta. It was Gideon. So they've got 22,000 soldiers, and God's like, we need to reduce that. Bill, why do you think God wants him to reduce the army
so
size?
that they wouldn't trust in themselves and say, oh, it was because of our strength that we were able to win this victory. But he wanted it to be absolutely clear that he was the one who was fighting for them, and that he was the one who gave them the victory, just like he had said he always would.
Yeah, it's like God gets the glory not through the logical, but through the miraculous.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so they're awesome, it's God's awesome.
Yeah.
So it reduces from 22,000 to 10,000. How do we get from 10,000 to 300?
So then he says, go drink some water.
So 10,000 men go down to drink water.
Drinking water. And some of them are drinking normally, like bringing their hand up from the river into their mouth, but they're doing it wrong.
Apparently.
And the 300 were the ones who just put their faces right in and were lapping it up like dogs.
Yeah. So we any thoughts on why that would be better to lap like a dog than use your hands?
Well, so maybe, I don't know. One, they're just very aggressive guys. And you want to keep the 300 most aggressive dudes there. But the other idea could be that they had a hand on their sword, and so they were ready with a second they weren't going to be have wet hands and be distracted. Or I think this is interesting. They didn't have soap. They didn't have hand sanitizer.
Those hands were dirty.
Maybe drinking right out of the water without using your hands as a scoop was a smarter thing to do.
So were they more barbaric, or was it
more
actually
civilized.
smart?
Yeah,
but we got 300
Anyway,
out of it.
we got 300. And so then Gideon takes these 300 guys. They basically go to Hobby Lobby, get some candles, some jars, some trumpets.
Yep.
And so they're going up at night. There's light that you see scattered across. He's like, blow the trumpet so it's loud. And he's like, break the jars so they're smashing. And basically the Midianites go into a complete frenzy. They don't know what's going on. They start killing each other on accident. And then he conquers the Midianites.
Total
and
victory.
who gets the glory?
Yeah, God.
Oh, God. All right. And so the people are like, be our king. And he's like, no, God's going to lead you. But he fails. He makes an ephod.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
It was part of the garments that the priests would wear,
Yeah.
like a golden
and
vest.
so he makes one, and he's not a high priest.
Yeah.
So he's messed up. He's not doing things right. So after he dies, he has 70 sons. One of his sons is named Abimelech, which means
my father is king.
my father's king. So he told him that he didn't want to be their king, that that God was going to be their king. But apparently he was trying to be their king because he literally named his son
My dad's the king.
my father's king.
Yeah.
And so Abimelech is is trying to scheme to basically take his dad's spot. He's like, there's 70 sons. Like, how do I get to that spot? So he kills almost every son on the same stone, which some say it could have been like an altar. Like maybe this was a sacrifice to Baal. So he's killing all these sons on the same stone. One son escapes, and he's like, tries to prophesy and say, this isn't going to go well for you. Then no one listens to him. So he pieces out. Then Abimelech burns his hometown to the ground. And which is like, so now he doesn't have anywhere to live. It's like, I just destroyed my home. So he goes to another town, conquers it, and then everyone goes to hide in the tower. And he's like, let's just burn the tower down.
Yeah.
And as he goes to burn the tower down, Jerica, maybe not a tent peg, but what happens?
A woman throws a rock over the edge and hits him in the head.
Like, I wonder, like, how tall was this tower, and like, how good of her was her
How
aim?
big was that? I think of Home Alone 2 when he's throwing bricks off the roof.
100%. This is what happened.
Sorry, I bring movie references to the table.
So Macaulay Culkin breaks Abimelech's head, And he's like, I don't want to go down in history as a guy that got killed by a chick. So he asked his armor bearer to stab him and kill him, but he goes down in history as
you were killed by a woman.
Killed by a woman. Yeah. All right. So chapters 10 through 12, we get 6 bad judges. I mean, Tola barely gets a mention. Jair, the Gileadite. Then we see Israel worshiping all kinds of gods. I mean, it's literally, they're like, we'll worship anything. Mm-hmm. Reminds me like a kid like worshiping a baseball and thinking that's going to make him hit a home run. Like they're just like, what is it? A god? We'll worship it. Things aren't going well for him, and they cry out to God. And what does God tell him?
It's basically says, why don't you go cry out to these other gods and see if they can answer your prayers?
Like go worship that baseball, see if he'll show up.
Yeah.
And they're like these. It's almost like they're like, these gods are fake. They're not going to come through for us.
Yeah.
So they're like, we don't deserve to be saved, but God, would you please save us? And then God's like, okay, and we get Jephthah, and so he's going to deliver them. God tells him that he's going to win the battle, and then almost like on a whim, he makes a really rash vow. What's his vow that he makes?
He says he's going to sacrifice the first thing that comes to greet him, comes out of his house, is when he returns from the battle.
So what do you think he thought would come out?
A lamb, a goat.
Like, do lambs come to you like a dog? Like I've never been on a farm. Are they like?
Yeah. Maybe
I have a friend who has a couple goats. They're like
come
dogs.
See what's
they
going
just
on.
come and.
It's like, hey,
But
I heard your carpool in the driveway.
He definitely didn't expect his daughter.
So then he wins, and then he goes to his house, and his daughter comes out.
Yeah.
And so a big question that we had that instead of waiting till the end, we'll just answer it now. Like, did he have to keep this vow?
That's a great question, man. And growing up, when I read this story, I always had the impression of, he's just stuck and he had to keep it, and what a tragic thing for him. But that's not actually true.
Yeah. So Deuteronomy 18:10 specifically forbids sacrificing a human. So killing someone or sacrificing someone is a sin.
Right.
Leviticus 5 says that if a vow causes you to lead into sin, you're actually allowed to break that vow. You then offer a sin offering in its place. So if he knew the law, he would know that he doesn't have to follow this vow. Apparently he doesn't know the law. So some commentators say maybe he actually didn't sacrifice her. She was just doomed to a life of virginity, and she was never able to marry, so she died alone. I'm not sure what happens, but it's a super sad story. It kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Interesting guy. And I mean, we think about him, you think about Gideon, and they're especially like with Gideon, you always just hear the heroic part of that story.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in the book of Hebrews, in chapter 11, the Hall of Faith, he actually references Gideon. He references Jephthah, and which is, they're like, really, these guys are there, and so it's like there's very flawed people that still are known that God used them in there.
Yeah. So after him, we get Ibzan, Elon, Abdon. And so that gets us to chapters 13 through 16, where we meet Menorah and his wife. His wife's barren. Have we seen that in scripture before?
That's a theme, yeah.
A theme. We'll see it again with Elizabeth, right? And so there's kind of this theme. But the angel of the Lord, which could be a theophany, shows up and says, you're going to have a son. He's going to be a Nazirite. What does it mean to be a Nazirite?
Yeah, so that's if you weren't a Levite, who are the most committed, dedicated, set apart people, you could take this vow and set yourself apart in a pretty intense way to say, I'm dedicating my life to the Lord for this.
So you're not cutting your hair, you're not drinking wine. There's some restrictions, like you're not touching any dead things. And some people took this for a period of time. Like, I'll take a Nazirite vow for a year or for 3 years. This was going to be his life, right? So she has the baby. His name is Samson. Yeah. He's supposed to live as a Nazirite. And does he do a good job?
Doesn't do a good job is an understatement.
Yeah.
So he's probably the worst judge. Period.
He's just not a hero.
No.
I mean, there's just so much tragedy in his life.
What are some things he does where he messes up?
Yeah. So he wants to marry a Philistine. So that's big time. Don't do that. Even though he has this secret plot that's kind of undergirding why he's going to do that. He kills a lion with his bare hands.
It says he tore the lion like normal people would tear a goat, but have you ever torn a goat?
I've actually never done that.
I don't think I could.
I struggle to get like the chicken bone off of like a rotisserie chicken. I'm like, yeah, I'm just not that strong.
So he rips it
Certain
apart.
bags of chips really.
Yeah. So he tears it apart. Then he's touching something dead.
Yeah, and then some.
What happens to the line? Like the carcass? Apparently, some bees are like, "This looks like a good home." Right. So they're making honey, and he goes back and gets the honey out of there. Pooh Bear, over here.
He has this wedding feast where there was probably lots of people drinking. He's probably violating his vow about the fruit of the vine.
And so Jerry, you mentioned earlier, what's he doing? He's walking through the field, which is like he's kind of almost testing the limits.
Yeah, it says that they're walking to Timnah. Is that the town? And they're walking through the vineyard.
Say it with confidence.
The vineyards, and it's like he's not supposed to be having to do anything with something that comes off of the vine. So what's he doing walking around there? And Jeff, you've always said like we're either going to go to the well or we're going to have a fence. Samson lives life on the edge of the fence. This is
he's
him.
Like he's trying to find how far is too far. He's trying to find the edge and even crossing the line.
Yep.
Yeah, and he gets betrayed by his new wife. Gets mad, kills a bunch of people, touching more dead bodies, and then.
Finally, this famous battle that he fights with the jawbone of a donkey. So
his weapon of choice.
And he's touching something dead.
Yeah, so he doesn't do a good job of living out this vow. It's almost like he doesn't even think, he doesn't take God seriously. It's almost like, I think sometimes we mistake God's patience for his approval or his grace for his approval. And so the fact that God hasn't shown up multiple times and just smited him, he's almost like, maybe God's not that big of a deal, or maybe God's approving of what I'm doing. So I think that's an important lesson for us. Never mistake God's grace for his approval.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So in chapter 16, we meet Delilah. Hey there, Delilah. What's it like in New York City?
Don't name your kids Delilah.
Yeah, he's into her, but nothing in the text makes us think that she's into him. And so the lords of the Philistines, they're like, hey, dude, Samson's into you. We could use this. We're going to pay you. And what do they want her to do? They're paying her to do what?
They're trying to get the secret out of him. What's his Achilles heel? Basically.
What's the source of all his strength?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So they're trying to figure out how, like, where does this dude get his strength? I mean, if you were to think of Samson, like I think about the children book Bibles that I've seen of Samson, like, but if you were to say if he was going to be an Avenger, which Avenger would he be?
I said he was Thor, but he was like Fat Thor, where he's not making a lot of really great choices. And
Smells.
he's stinky. He hasn't washed his hair in a long time.
Yeah, he's got dreads.
And nobody really wants to be around him.
Yeah. Bill, who do you think he'd be?
If not Thor, I was thinking like the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. Banner.
Samson smash.
So what's interesting, I was listening to one commentator say that most likely he was not muscular. And the reason why they want to know where his strength is that if he had big muscles, they'd be like, yeah, look at him. He's a strong dude. But they're confused because he probably doesn't look strong. And they're wondering, where does his strength come from? Because he doesn't look like the Hulk. He doesn't look like Thor. So maybe he was more like Loki. Who knows? Who knows? All right. So either way, so we got Loki here, and Delilah 3 different times is like, where's your strength come from? And he makes up different excuses, lies that aren't true. They never work. And every time, like, she tries to betray him,
and he knows she's setting me up.
Yeah.
And he keeps hanging with her.
Yeah. So like he's either blinded by love, or just super arrogant and thinks like no one can overtake him. But eventually she gets him to actually spill his heart, which he's like,
he was tormented.
It's my hair in him. And so they shave off his head. He's probably a deep sleeper. Like, I just want to shave your head and you're not
Maybe waking up.
Drunk. Maybe.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe just passed out on bourbon or something. He's like, that's not the grape, corn. And so
that's how he was so strong.
Yeah.
He's from Nebraska.
And so, so they shave his head, and then basically they torment him. Like they gouge out his eyes. They make him grind at the mill, and it's just this super sad story of this heroic vigilante Batman character who's so strong all of a sudden is just completely nothing. Yeah. And what's interesting is when he's talking to God, to Delilah, he calls God Elohim. which is an impersonal. It's just like I know about God, but I don't know God. But after he's crushed, he's blinded, he's lost his strength, his hair is growing back. Eventually he cries out to the Lord, or to Yahweh, which is the relational name that Israel calls God. And some commentators believe like maybe he's repented at this point. Like he's turned back to, like he's smited God, he's disrespected God, he's not taking God seriously, but finally he's like, God is the source of my strength. I need you. And he turns back to God. And then in this last heroic feat, as everyone's in this like temple-ish area worshiping Dagon. Party. Yeah, he pulls down the pillars and kills everybody, including himself. But Jerica, you said one of the reasons why you wanted to jump into this podcast is because you missed out on an opportunity to Deuteronomy. But you said that this story is one of the most impactful stories in your life. So why was this such an impactful story for you? I listened to a sermon on this, and it just kind of brought to light the redemption that God has for our lives. To see Samson, tiptoeing on the edge of sin, and then in one turn of a page, you go 20 years, and then he's sleeping on the lap of a prostitute. And that just showed me in my life, man, small compromises over time turn into really big sin. But at the end of this, it says in verse 22, chapter 16, but the hair of his head began to grow again. And right there, like that's, God is still working in Samson, even though he's at rock bottom. And then he goes and kills 3,000 men at the end of his life, after all of this stuff happened. Whereas before he had only killed like 1,030 or something, whatever the count was. So he killed 3 times as many people. He did more after he hit rock bottom. Yeah. So that just like showed me, man, when I was at my worst, God still came and did even more after that. Yeah. So God's always redeeming our story. That's good. Well, I'm glad that impacted your life. So. All right, so chapter 17 through 21, things get nasty. We meet this guy named Micah, who basically wants to have a priest, so he ordains his son, who's not a Levite, so it's a fake priest. Eventually he meets a real Levite, and he's like, Jonathan, you're going to be my priest. And he really wants he wants God for God's stuff, not God for God. Chapter 18 zooms in on the tribe of Dan. And so Dan, they're basically camped out with the Canaanites because they never drove them out. Yeah. They're like, I don't like living next to Canaanites. So they're like, we're going to go get some new land up north. As they're traveling up north, they meet Micah's Jonathan, his Levite, and they're like, would you inquire of God? And let us know if we should go up and take this new land. And he's like, sounds like a great plan. So they go up and you
kill everybody.
And this is not God's plan.
No.
Like he didn't allot the land for them. So they're so this is Israel completely getting away from God's design.
Yeah.
In chapter 19, we get one of the most messed up stories in Judges. I mean, this story is just jacked up, where there's a Levite who has a concubine. He's at a guy's house, and all of the tribe of Benjamin shows up. And they're like, we want to sleep with the Levite. It's like we want so, and it's their leaders. It's the leaders of the tribe of Benjamin want to sleep with him. This sounds like another story in the Bible,
like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, in Genesis 19. And then the guy that he's standing at his house is like, you can have my virgin daughter, like spare the, and then leave,
terrible,
or you can have this guy's concubine. Yeah. And so he basically holds up in the house, sends his concubine out. Yeah. They take advantage of her.
They rape her, they beat her, and then they kill her.
And so he comes out the next morning, horrible. She's dead.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, what do we do here? So he doesn't want to get blamed for this death. So to kind of cover his own tracks, he cuts her up into 12 pieces and sends a piece of her to the 12 tribes of Israel, basically accusing the tribe of Benjamin of this atrocity. Mm-hmm. So then all of Israel's like, we got to go confront the tribe of Benjamin. So they show up and they're like, give us the dudes who killed the concubine. They're like, no, we're going to protect our leaders. They're protecting the sinfulness of their leaders. And then after that, like, they're like, let's just kill them all. So then all of a sudden, every other tribe of Israel rises up and kills everyone from the tribe of Benjamin, except for 600 dudes escape. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, well, we can't wipe out this tribe. It is a tribe of God. So let's go. We're going to go kill this other group of people. We're going to take 400 of their virgins to marry the 600 men of Benjamin. But they're like, but we're 200 short. So they go to a party, like a rave, a crazy dance, and steal
200 more ladies.
200 more ladies. And like it ends, as the book ends, it's just kind of like, yuck. And it's like, and we see God less and less. And and I think like so important as we read Judges is to understand that when we read the Bible, we want to do so literarily. And so we know that like this is recording historical events that did happen, not things that God approved of or wanted to happen. And so it's messed up stuff that should make us want to puke, but it's not saying God ordained this to happen, that God approved of it, that God took pleasure in it. It's merely recording how messed up Israel is and the fact that they're doing what's right in their own eyes. That when we operate based off of what we think is right, we get further and further away from God's intended order.
Yeah, that's that refrain that happens. They say that over and over and over again in the book of Judges. The people did what was right in their own eyes, and I think that's something to take to heart from that. And it ends so darkly, and you feel like your stomach just ugh. Yeah. But it does point us to they needed a king.
Yeah, they're trying to do things in the right. They're trying to do things that are right in their own eyes, and it shows they desperately need leadership. They need a king, which is going to set us up.
Yeah, for the ultimate king that we need, but it's going to take us to David.
Yeah, it's going to get us into 1 Samuel. So after Judges, we get to Ruth. So while Judges is taking place, most likely the book of Ruth is also taking a place kind of in a parallel
2 generations in, maybe from the very beginning of.
So Moab, bad place. Like I think if Moab had theme music, it would be like dun 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 dun. It's like the empire. Yeah, it's evil. So there's this lady named Naomi. She's married. She's got 2 sons, and there's famine in Bethlehem. So they're like, we've got to go, and they go to Moab, which is nothing good. Like this is how desperate they are. They go to Moab, and her 2 sons. What do you know what her 2 sons' names mean, Jerica?
Malon is sickly, and confident. Killian is frail. So, and they live up to their names.
Yeah, and this is like the reality to which they were born into. So while they're in Moab, like Naomi's husband dies, her sons marry Moabite women, so foreign women, then they die.
Yep.
Sickly and frail, can't survive.
Yep.
And so now you have Naomi with her 2 daughter-in-laws, and like being a widow in Moab,
she thought she was done for.
Like they don't have the Levitical law to like take care of widows. Like there's no hope.
They're barely,
And so she's like, you guys go back to your parents' house, like remarry, start over. I'm going to go back to Bethlehem. I've heard the famine's over. One of them is like, yep, I'm going to go back. Thanks for all your work. Kiss on the cheek. I'm out.
Deuces.
But what does Naomi say? Or what does Ruth say?
She says, no, I'm going to stay with you. Where you go, I go.
Yeah. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. That's a big shift there.
Oh, so good. And so they go back to Bethlehem. She goes to a field to glean. Like, what does that mean?
You're getting, according to the laws, they actually were supposed to leave the extra remains of whatever they were harvesting, and so she could just go along and pick up just this little bits all along the way.
Yeah, like the surplus of the rich was able to take care of the poor. So it's glorified dumpster diving, more or less. So she's gleaning the field, and it turns out a certain dude owns the field. What's his name?
Mr. Boaz.
Boaz. Bill, do you know who Boaz's mom is?
So this is pretty amazing that his mom is Rahab,
who we met in Joshua
as the prostitute in Jericho, who her whole family was saved through her, through what she did.
Yeah. So God had a heart towards the outsider when he saved Rahab. Now her son Boaz is going to express God's heart towards his mom and his heart towards Ruth.
Yeah.
And so he sees Ruth and he's like, who is she? Right? Like he's interested. So he like inquires of her, but he also wants to protect her because as we found out in Judges chapter 19, is it safe to be a woman in Bethlehem? Not at all. And so he wants to protect her, but he's interested in her. But he's not the aggressive type. Like I was talking to a guy last Saturday who's dating someone, and I was like, how'd you guys meet? He's like, I saw her at the store and I said, you're beautiful. I was like, that's an aggressive dude. That's an aggressive guy. He's like, are you dating anybody? She's like, I'm not. Now they're dating. Like, wow, that's not good Boaz. So he knows what he wants. So when Boaz starts hooking her up with all this extra food, Naomi's like, where did you get all this wheat?
Right.
And she's like, this guy Boaz. And she's like, Boaz? Why is she excied about Boaz?
It's because he's a relative. And so that in their, according to the law, the Levirate law, that if you're, had a close family member who they passed away, that you would take their wife and that you would father children and keep the line going. This idea of a kinsman redeemer. Yeah. And so she was like, he could be our kinsman redeemer.
Yeah. And so he's not aggressive though. He's not making the move.
He's playing the long game.
Yeah. And so Naomi and Ruth come up with a plan. Jerica, what's the plan?
All right. Ruth is going in to the threshing floor.
Yeah, they're working the field. So he's sleeping out in the fields or in the threshing floor.
So she goes in and she uncovers his feet. And basically she's the one who's on the offense.
Like he's startled. He's like,
she's initiating.
Who is this?
And it's basically like, hey, let's get married. Do you want to marry me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that's chapter 3. And then in chapter 4, they get married. Like he basically goes through the proper channels to make sure another kinsman redeemer doesn't purchase her. He purchases her. They get married. They have kids. And eventually it leads to King David. And King David eventually leads to Jesus. Yeah. Any other thoughts from Ruth?
Yeah.
Jerica, is it a story about finding your Boaz? Should we write a women's Bible study on Ruth?
Y'all wanted to vomit at the end of Judges, and I want to vomit when someone says that about Ruth, because that's not what
Jerica,
it's about.
Are you going to go uncover some guy's feet today?
I mean, apparently I'm taking the wrong approach when it comes to dating. I need to go walk up to somebody and say, hey, let's get married.
You're handsome. You date anybody?
Yeah. No, I'm more of like Boaz's approach. But 4 things that I saw about Ruth reading this is just her perspective. She lives her life with the end in mind, and so that there's wisdom that comes from remembering your end and living in light of eternity. And then the second was loyalty. Her name literally means friendship, and so we see her loyalty to both Naomi and to God. And then in chapter 3:10, it says Boaz was watching to see if she was pretty on the inside, and he saw her loyalty. And then her third was she had ambition. There was boldness and a gutsy faith. I mean, you gotta be bold if you're gonna ask a guy to marry you. And then fourth is her nobility. So she will be revered as part of the royal dynasty that God used to get His Son into the world.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see that.
I love it, seeing Rahab, Ruth as the mothers of Jesus. Yeah.
Good.
So, Bill, any other thoughts on Ruth?
Yeah, on Ruth, that I think that you could also just, like, what if you read that through the lens of Naomi, being the central character who goes through this, who starts out, her name means pleasant, and then she changes her name to Mara, which means bitterness. That's a big deal when you change your name. Just call me bitter from now on. And she's thinking my life is just falling apart. But as we see, God had a bigger plan, and His providence is working in the background the whole time, and then it works out in the end. Yeah. And that's encouraging to me, just as we're going through the everyday setbacks, struggles, sufferings of our lives, that we can know that we're part of a bigger story. Yeah. God's doing something.
From Naomi's perspective, we see famine. Her family, they had famine, then funerals, but then God redeems through it, and they have a new family.
Yeah.
So it's good.
That's beautiful. Yeah, so we see Jesus sprinkled throughout Judges and Ruth. One, the tribe of Judah. Yeah. And then we see the angel
appearing to Gideon
of the Lord. We see kind of see a shadow of like a John the Baptist type figure with the barren woman, and then her son comes out as a Nazarite. John the Baptist, Elizabeth was barren, and then he goes out into the wilderness and eats locusts and honey, and I wonder if his honey came from a lion. Probably not.
I don't think so. He was.
But I think the biggest shadow for me in this week's reading has been Ruth. I love to see that her story is pointing forward to something greater. And so as we keep track of her genealogy, it leads us to Jesus, and she was treated as an outsider. Jesus was treated as an outsider. He was rejected, but he didn't belong to this world because the world belonged to him. And this child, Jesus, came to redeem the world, and the price he'd pay wouldn't be the price of a field. It'd be the price of his life. And so he redeems all who trust in him. And so I think the story of Ruth isn't ultimately about Boaz being her redeemer. It's ultimately about Jesus being ours. Mm-hmm. So some of the big questions we had were around Jephthah in that vow. Also just the Levite's concubine. But two other ones were one was like the Holy Spirit's movement. Is the Holy Spirit different in the Old Testament and the New Testament? So Bill, any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. And so you study Scripture and you look at the Spirit, it changes throughout the course of history, starting at the beginning where he's brooding over the waters at creation, and then through the Old Testament where we see him coming in an external way and empowering people for battles like Samson, or for prophetic words or miracles. But then you get the prophecy in Joel 2 where God says, I'm going to pour out my Spirit in a whole new way. And then we see that in Acts 2 where the Spirit is given, and Jesus saying, hey, it's better for me to go away so that the Spirit can come. And then we now have the indwelling presence of the Spirit in our lives, which is, I can't imagine what it would be like to live try to follow God without having the Spirit with you.
That's good. And then another question, is it wrong for us to quote, lay down our fleece? So where we have Gideon laying down his fleece, like, are we allowed to do that? Should we not do that? Is that frowned upon? Like, should I not have done that? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, well, when we look at that, Gideon was operating out of fear.
Yeah.
And he basically had his answer, but he kept saying like, well, let's try it this way instead. Yeah. And so he was trying to get the odds in his favor to get the answer he wanted from God.
Yeah.
So I think that was operating out of fear based, but we do have to have discernment, and we're asking God to show us things.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely want to seek God's guidance and his counsel. But when he's made it clear and he's spoken, it's like Gideon was just like, I think he's so afraid of following through with what God told him that he kept putting out these things to say, give me something else to do this. And he's kind of putting God to the test. So
So you don't want to put God to the test.
Yeah.
I think so often when people kind of, so to speak, lay down their fleece, it's almost like, should I go to China and be a missionary? Like, I feel like God's laying on that in my heart. Well, God, if you strike this tree with lightning, then I'll go. It's like you're almost stacking the odds against it versus it's like, why not say like, God, if you don't strike this tree with lightning, then I will go to China. But I know that in my life, sometimes I'm asking God like, hey, would you help make this clear for me?
Clear.
But it's with things that he hasn't already made clear, so I don't think it's wrong to ask God, hey, would you help bring clarity to this for me? It is wrong if God has already like, should I forgive this person? Like, yes. Like, God, well, if you turn this light red in 3 seconds, then I'll forgive him. It's like you're laying down your fleece in a negative way, in a wrong way. God has already told you to extend forgiveness as you've been forgiven. So I think it really plays. So I don't think it's wrong to ask God for clarity to help you have clarity on a situation, but it is wrong to operate in fear or to put down a fleece, so to speak, to delay obedience. So. Yeah. Well, you guys were out of time. We're supposed to set up 1 Samuel, but I'm just going to ask you guys to jump in and read 1 Samuel, and we'll unpack that next week. So you'll learn about, does Israel get a king? They need one. They need a leader. Do they get one? Yeah. What tribe's he from? Benjamin. That's going to be Saul. We're gonna meet David, and he's from Judah, and so we're gonna see some of these tribes coming back to play. Maybe some redemption from some of the jacked up stuff we saw in Judges. So we'll be back together next week in 1 Samuel. And Jerica, will you join us again? Maybe not next week, but will you make another appearance?
If 10 people.
Oh man, okay.
Laying down your fleece.
Yeah, I'm gonna lay down my fleece on that one.
Hey, thanks for hanging out, you guys, and we will be with you next week.